Hi, this is Kevin for Passion for the Word. You already know all the things to do on YouTube. Hit the like button. That helps promote these videos. Share it. Tell your friends about it. Most of all, pray for this ministry if it blesses you. We're continuing our study on the Sermon on the Mount, and today we're tackling Matthew 7, verses 13 through verses 20. We're kind of lumping these two together just because by themselves it's almost too short of a video. I thought about pulling 15 and 20 out as a separate and then tying 13 and 14 with the tail end, but we're going to take them the way they're written. So, as I typically do, I'm going to read through the passage, then we'll come back and look at them. Starting in verse 13. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. Because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Verse 15, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruit. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits you shall know them. Okay. Verses 13 and 14, we're going to kind of take them as a subpart. Obviously, we've got two paths. We've got two choices. Heaven or hell. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. This is talking about the pathway to hell. Many there be. Now this word, I think when we look at this, the two verses, because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. I don't think there's any question that verse 13, many, means majority, and in verse 14, few means minority. Most people are going to hell. That's just plain. That's what the scripture says. When we get a little further on, we're going to find out that many people that think they're Christian are going to go to hell. But that's for the next video. We're not going to jump ahead. Oftentimes, the pathway to hell isn't labeled pathway to hell. Satan's a deceiver. He's going to lie, and he's going to make this look like the pathway to heaven. Many are going to be going through it thinking they're on their way to heaven. But it says, strait is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. He gives us a warning, right? Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Wolves are bad. Wolves are dangerous. But you can spot a wolf. But a wolf in sheep's clothing is different. A wolf in sheep's clothing is someone that's a tool of Satan, but is trying to look like he's on God's side. They'll often be the ones taking these scriptures out of context. Maybe they're not even aware that they're a wolf in sheep's clothing. Many of the times the pastors that push the prosperity gospel, I think many of them know that they're not preaching the gospel correctly, and they don't care. They're looking for just money. There was a very famous TV evangelist back in the day. He had a huge following because a guy by the name of Robert Tilton, big faith healer type guy. Well, not faith healer, not so much like Benny Hinn, but one of the big guys. Hey, you send me money. Doesn't matter how much. If you're broke, send me money, and God will take care of you. If he's not a preacher of the gospel, sending money to him isn't going to do any good. If you do want to tithe, if you do want to be a blessing, if you want to give to God, you've got to give it to a ministry that is serving God. Just because a guy calls himself a pastor, just because I call myself a preacher, doesn't mean that I am. I could be lying. I use scriptures, but I could be taking them out of context. The only way for you to know if I'm genuinely called or if I'm a wolf in sheep's clothing is you have to know the scripture for yourself. I try to teach it as honestly as I can, but you don't know if I'm genuinely honest. You have to know the scripture for yourself. Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. The only way to know this, the only way to be is to know the Bible for yourself. Read Acts 17:11. These were more noble than those referring to the Bereans. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they were open to the word, but they searched the scriptures daily to see that it was so. They listened to preaching, but they went back home and they checked the scriptures to verify it, what they just heard was true or not. They would have been very hard for a false prophet, for a wolf in sheep's clothing to deceive, because they studied the word, and they would go home after they heard this and check it. You shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns? Well, I'm surrounded by grapevines and there's no thorns here. Or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Now this is referring to works. Works do not save you. But if you're genuinely saved, you will produce good works. It's an after effect. If you're not producing good works, what happens? Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. I'm not making that up. Matthew 7:19, the words of Christ. Every tree, and like this isn't referring to plants. This is Jesus talking about works, what we're supposed to do. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. If you're a Christian, you will produce good works. You will have an inward need to produce good works. You just won't be able to not do it. If you don't have any desire to produce good works, good fruit of any sort, it's not my job I have no idea what your fruit would be. That's something that you have to take to God. You know your skills, you know your gifts. If you don't have any, maybe it's just to help out in the church. Maybe it's to scrub toilets and sweep the floor and clean the church. Surely you can do that. Maybe it's to take a Sunday school class if your church is big enough to have Sunday school, different classes. I don't know what your situation is, but if you're a Christian, you should be desiring to do something to produce good fruit. And then, wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Remember in the last video we talked about, or the first video, 2 videos ago, Matthew 7:1, judge not lest ye be judged. Right? Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. We're to be fruit judgers. We're to judge people's fruit. Is this genuine fruit? A lot of people, I can't remember who I heard this from, but it's great. Make sure what you're doing stuff in God's name. You're doing stuff for God in God's name, not for you in God's name. There's an awful lot of people I know that their entire ministry is all about look at me. If God were glorified by it, it's definitely a second or third on the list of importance. It's all about glorifying me. This is talking about make sure your fruit is good fruit. If you're producing bad fruit, get it changed. Jesus is clear. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. That's all I've got for this one. Thank you and God bless.